Hello, dear students. My name is Pалутина Ольга Геннадьевна. Today we are going to start our lectures on sociolinguistics. It's a relatively modern science, but it is extremely interesting to explore. Our first theme is the subject matter of sociolinguistics. Sociolinguists study the relationship between language and society. They are interested in explaining why we speak differently in different social contexts. And they are concerned with identifying the social functions of language and the ways it is used to convey social meaning. Examining the way people use language in different social contexts provides a wealth of information about the way language works, as well as about the social relationships in a community, and the way people signal aspects of their social identity through their language. Let us have a look at example 1. Ray's description of his teacher would have been expressed differently if he had realized his grandmother could hear him. The way people talk is influenced by social context in which they are talking. It matters who can hear us and where we are talking, as well as how we are feeling. The same message may be expressed very differently to different people. We use different styles in different social contexts. Leaving school, Ray had run into his school principal. Please read example 2. This response reflects Ray's awareness of the social factors which influence the choice of appropriate ways of speaking in different social contexts. The conversation between Ray and his mother also illustrates the fact that language serves a range of functions. We use language to ask for and give people information. We use it to express indignation and annoyance as well as admiration and respect. Often one utterance will simultaneously convey both information and express feelings. The examples discussed so far have illustrated a range of social influences on language choice. Sociolinguists are also interested in the different types of linguistic variation used to express and reflect social factors. Vocabulary or word choice is one area of linguistic variation. But linguistic variation occurs at other levels of linguistic analysis too: sounds, word structure or morphology, and grammar or syntax, as well as vocabulary. In example 3, the most obvious linguistic variation involves pronunciation. Sam drops his H's while Jim doesn't. Just as vocabulary choices convey social information, so using different pronunciation conveys social information too. Sam is a coal miner and Jim is an old friend of Sam's son Henry. Jim is also the local MP and he has dropped in to see Sam on one of his regular visits from London, where he now spends most of his time. The difference in Sam's and Jim's H dropping behavior reflects their different educations and occupations. In other words, despite their common regional origins, they have different social backgrounds, and that is reflected in their speech. The sentences in example 4 illustrate language variation in grammar and vocabulary. The first, A, uses a passive grammatical structure, should be deposited, for example, which avoids any mention of the people involved. By contrast, B uses an imperative verb form, put, and an address form, Jilly. This utterance is much more direct and it specifies whose rubbish is the focus of the directive. Refuse, deposited, and receptacle are all more formal and less frequent words than rubbish, put, and bin. Both sentences express the same message or speech function. They give a directive. But they are not interchangeable. If your mother said A to you as you dropped a bit of paper on the floor, it is likely you would find it odd. You might assume she was being sarcastic or humorous, but you wouldn't be likely to consider it a normal way of speaking to someone she knew well. In each of the examples discussed, certain factors have been relevant in accounting for the particular variety used. Some relate to the uses of language, the participants. Others relate to its uses, the social setting, and the function of the interaction. Who is talking to whom? Wife to her husband, boss to his or her worker is an important factor. The setting or social context, for example, home, work, school, is generally a relevant factor too. The aim or purpose of the interaction, informative or social, may be important. And in some cases, the topic has proved an influence on language choice. Not all factors are relevant in any particular context. In any situation, linguistic choices will generally reflect the influence of one or more of the components displayed. The first attested use of the term sociolinguistics was by Thomas Callan Hodgson in the title of a 1939 paper. Sociolinguistics in the West first appeared in the 1960s and was pioneered by linguists such as William Labov in the United States of America and Basil Bernstein in the United Kingdom. The following slide shows some important sociolinguistic terms and concepts. For instance, sociolinguists often resort to the term variety, but not language, because they may deal with variations of one and the same language, but not different ones. On this slide, you can see the definition of multilingualism and monolingualism, analyzed by sociolinguists. Nowadays, monolingualism is no longer a natural condition, as more and more people speak two and more languages. Now I would like you to think of the variety you would use in a certain domain, talking to a certain person on a certain topic. Don't forget that the term variety or code doesn't necessarily mean another language. And finally, we'll see what other disciplines sociolinguistics is connected with. They are enumerated on the screen. At the next lecture, we'll talk more about language and its relation with the society. Thank you for your attention.